you will please stand. I'm going to ask Mr. Jackson to lead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everybody to a 4:30 meeting. Not usually this early, but I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, Judge Tate, for being with us today. I'm not going to make you give a speech or anything like that. I want to introduce, I think everybody in the house has met Dr. Dennis Coe. Tremendous person. Thank you for stepping up to help us as our interim superintendent and throughout our search process going forward. I appreciate what you're doing for us, your leadership and your guidance, and I hope Central Office you'll attest to that at the same time. But thank you for being here, and we'll turn it over to you shortly on that. Ms. Wendy, we need to have a roll call, and you'll notice all 5 board members are here, so we have a quorum. Moving on to the agenda, any item on that you'd like to change on the agenda? No. Okay. Board members, any changes? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Got a motion from Ms. Claybrook, second from Ms. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, so the agenda's set. Moving on to the minutes of the December 18th meeting. You got a copy of those emailed earlier. Hope you had a chance to review them. At the time, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion.
Got a motion from Mr. Jackson, a second from Dr. Tompkins. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so those minutes are approved. Moving on to financial statement. Mr. Westman, good to have you with us.
Hey, my reports for the month of November 2017. If you look at that front page, you can see our reserves are at 1.59 months, which is just a little bit more than what we were last month. It's still down from where we were last year, as you can see on the graph. Cash balance is a little over $1.12 million. Like I said, you can see on the graph how we had that major jump. Like I said, we had the inter funds that we talked about last month that were paid back during the month of November, so those are in place. Other than the CNP amount, which we're still reconciling, we just hadn't made that payment yet. But we got all the other ones in place, so sales tax collections are still down. We had a pretty decent month, like I said, better than we did last year for the month of November, but we're still down a little over $6,000 year to date, and then property taxes look pretty good. We're up about $19,000 year to date. Any questions?
I was trying to do the math today. If that one adjustment, I don't have it turned off, sorry. I get stuck in the corner now.
Yeah.
That one adjustment that was taken back from us, would our months in reserve be about the same?
I still think it would be a little bit less.
You think?
Just with all the, we had a lot of local stuff that we picked up last year from K-4 classrooms, different things like that. So it was going to be a little bit less than last year just because of the reduction in sales tax. I think we're still down even without the sales tax adjustment that was done. I think we were still down year to date at that point in time. So I think we would still be a little bit less, but no, we wouldn't be this low because they never gave me an amount specifically on what it was, but just from looking at numbers, I know it was probably $150,000, that we were looking at because, like I said, that September when it came in 2016, we were down the entire year on sales tax, and then that 1 month just boosted us up to, higher than we'd been in a little while. So I still think we've been down where we were at. Like I said, but a lot of that's the locally funded things that we've picked up over the last couple of years, K-4 classrooms and things like that.
Any questions for Mr. Weston?
I've just got one. I'm still new learning, I hadn't had a chance to go through all of these. Based on the existing budget, what, you remember off the top of your head, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what the excess revenues were, projected excess revenues were in the existing budget?
For this year?
For this fiscal year?
I think I projected this to be, it wasn't an excess balance. It was gonna be eating into the reserves. I'm thinking about $40,000 or $50,000.
So you got projecting excess expenditures
Right.
of 40, 50, okay.
Mhm.
Just, I hadn't had a chance to go through that.
Yeah, we need to go over the budget.
That'll be coming up soon, and I think, depending on how we move forward, or how you decide to move forward, that'll determine, you know, what decisions need to be made at the end of the year to, right now, I guess, I'm going to hear it a little bit, bleeding a little bit, so we need to stop the bleeding a little bit, so we can do some other things if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, no other questions, we'll entertain a motion to approve the financials as presented. Motion from Ms. Jones, second from Dr. Tompkins. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. Approved, thank you. Moving on to, board member, all right, I'll give that to you then.
Board Member Appreciation Month. We certainly want to thank each of you. This January is Board Member Appreciation Month, and having worked with boards all across the state and seeing the things that I guess you could say I have seen both sides, and sometimes your work and the things that you do doesn't go fully appreciated. You have a 24-hour day job, and I realize that, and our folks realize that too. So we did want to honor you and recognize you and thank you for the work that you do each day and night in supporting schools here in Crenshaw County. And the staff throughout all of the schools have got together and collected some gifts for you, and they all comply with the de minimis rule, so it is a de minimis value. So anyway, they're on the table there, so we did want to get, we did want to get a photograph. Do we
You
have
wanna
a
get a picture
photographer?
now or after? After.
We'll do that after, okay, so
And then we'll give you.
you've got a bag over there as well as a gift certificate that does comply with our ethics law, so we are above board. But I did want to take the opportunity, and I know our principals, and central office staff that are here wanted to thank you for the work that you do. I'll open it up if anybody wants to make any comments or say any thanks or.
Careful. Careful.
But
Just know
again,
we appreciate you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I'll make it short and sweet. Now, back when we first, I know when I first started on the board, you get all the complaints. These 5 get complaints, and for the longest I thought, does anybody do anything right? But the more I see what you guys do every day in the trenches, as I would say, you are the guys we need to be thanking, you know, with our children every day, 24/7. I know it doesn't go away on Saturday or snow days, it's still there. So we appreciate what y'all do, because your job makes our job a whole lot easier. And so thank y'all for what you do every day. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to informational items. I'm sure.
you'll see a calendar of events listed there, which is quite extensive, and, you know, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, but you'll see several test days there and data meetings. Y'all, there is a lot of thought that's going on instructionally of what's going on in our schools. We're gonna hear a presentation here in a few minutes about the upcoming report card. Looking at the events calendar, not just athletics, but you look at a lot of the extracurricular things, the groundwater festival, library specialist meetings, counselors, testing. There's just a multitude of things going on at the school, and this is just evidence of the work that our staff is doing to try to move the herd forward, I guess you could say. And that's gonna be more important that we keep our focus on that as the state report card gets released. But again, just to review that events calendar there and just to submit that for informational purposes.
Do we have, advanced ed, do we have a set date?
Yes.
Is it, what week is that?
They'll be visiting us starting March 18th. It's a Sunday through a Wednesday.
You might wanna remind us that quite often, on our part anyhow. Thank you.
Also, next regular board meeting, we'd like to, since we have a holiday coming up next month, we need to consider that meeting on Monday, February 26th, at 6 p.m. I believe, what is that, the preceding Monday, is that the holiday there, or was that the 19th? I think it's a holiday, so just to move it, since that's a holiday, we just move it forward. And that might also, depending on what you decide to do with the search, it give you a little bit more time with interviews or whatever you need to do prior to that. So I'd like to submit that to you. And I've asked Ms. Cantrip to, number 3 there, I've asked Ms. Cantrip to kind of walk you through the components of the state report card. Those are to be released here very shortly. We have the information already on the progress that we've made in our schools. That information is embargoed, so we still can't release that to the public as of yet, but I felt like it was important. It's gonna be released before our next board meeting, so I wanted to make sure that we gave you the information you needed to understand how that grade was assigned and what were the components that were part of issuing that.
Preface everything that we're gonna say now with a reminder that all of our accountability reports that are being issued at this point, the academic achievement standards or scores that are being reported are based on Aspire. And as you know, back in the spring and through the summer, our State Department deemed that the Aspire is not aligned with our state standards. So everything that's being rolled out now was based on that Aspire achievement of our students, but it won't be in the future. We'll be using different measures. Accountability is reported through 3 different ways, essentially. There is the Every Student Succeeds Act, the ESSA, the federal report card, and some of you may have seen that, if in no other way, through AL.com, when it came out on December the 31st. It's posted to the state website. The federal report card reported unweighted achievement data based on the Aspire and additional indicators. The second way that accountability is reported is through the Alabama Accountability Act, the AAA as it's sometimes called, or the Failing Schools List. That in the past has been released in January, but it has not yet been released this year. That's where the state ranks and finds the 6%, the lowest 6% performing schools in the state, and students in those schools are allowed to transfer to higher performing schools. The third measure is actually what we're going to talk about this evening, and that is the Alabama Act 2012-402, the state's A through F report card, and that's how it's generally referenced as the A through F report card. It was released, as Dr. Coe said, to superintendents on January the 11th. The information is embargoed until February the 1st, so we're not going to be able to discuss our system or school scores tonight because we are being held to that embargoed information. The state report card differs from the federal report card because it reports weighted achievement scores from the Aspire data as well as those additional indicators. In your board packet, I believe you received a calculation sheet that looked just like this. And it essentially walked you through the measures that the state used in calculating the A through F grade. The only thing that's been made public at this point in regards to the 2018 state A through F report card is the state grade. And as you know, it was reported last week at the state, or the week before at the state board meeting, that the state score was a 79 or a C. As we walk through this, the academic achievement that's included came from our Aspire that was administered to our students in grades 3 through 8 and 10 last spring of 2017. The graduation rate was our graduating class of 2016. We received credit for the students who graduated in 4 years, as well as students who graduated in 5 years in 16. So the difference there is academic achievement came from the spring of 2017. Graduation rate came from the spring of 2016. Academic growth came again from Aspire 2017. As you'll see, it was for those students in grades 4 through 8 and 10. The calculation was based on their growth from the Aspire they took the year before to the Aspire that they took last year in 2017. The college and career readiness indicator. Now that encompasses several items, so I just want to be sure that we cover those. Those are students who benchmarked in one or more areas on the ACT. students who took IB or AP courses, those students who benchmarked in work keys, students who earned college credit, dual enrollment credit, students who earned a career tech credential, or students who enrolled in the military. And those again came from our graduating class of 2016. Full academic year, you'll see it's defined as those students who were on our 20-day after Labor Day report, as well as students who were on our ninth attendance report. So if they were with us 20 days after Labor Day and they were still with us in May, they counted as a full academic year student, and that's where our chronic absenteeism rate came from. If we had any of those students, those full academic year students who had 15 or more absences, they filtered into our chronic absenteeism rate.
Which, by the way, chronic absentees, just to tell you how flawed the system is, actually conflicts with the state's definition for attendance. So the current state attendance policy, if you allowed children to be absent at the rate the state says is okay, then you're a chronic absentee. So that's something that as a district, and many districts are gonna need to look at what your local policy is on absenteeism moving forward to kind of help with that number.
That's right. From the bottom portion of the form that's in your packet, you see the scale here, the academic achievement weighted, academic growth weighted, graduation rate, college and career readiness, and chronic absenteeism. You see the percentage that each of those count for the system as well as for the school. The far right column does not apply to any of our schools because all of our schools have a grade 12. So the second and third column are how our calculations were determined. What we found as we looked at the scores that were released to us is that our schools are consistent one with the other. We are consistent with state averages. We are consistent with what we're hearing other systems who are similar to us are seeing in the scores that they received. What we do know is that in terms of future report cards, the State Department is going to gather input as soon as this is publicly released on February 1st. They're going to start gathering input through the end of the month. They're going to review the input and continue to revise the prototype report card that they're releasing at this time. And they realize that there are going to have to be changes because no longer will it be based on Aspire. It will be based on Scantron, which is what our students will be taking in grades 3 through 8 in the spring of this school year. I would love to be able to share more with you today, but knowing that we have been asked to hold the information tight until February 1st, we are limited. The State Department originally had a WebEx plan for last Tuesday to give the superintendent and staff here at the central office more information, but because of the weather, that had to be canceled. It's actually has been rescheduled for next. That's been filtered in, so there's nothing to
I like
compare
that
to.
idea, then a parent can monitor what
Absolutely,
Exactly.
from one
Because
year to the next.
different grades obviously perform at different, or different
That's right.
students perform different.
That's right.
And using the Scantron like you use here, you're required to do a beginning assessment and an end of year assessment, but here y'all are also doing a mid-year assessment.
That's right.
So you've got 3 opportunities to monitor and kind of, I like the mid-year assessment because it kind of gives you a halfway point and you can stop and say, okay, is what we're doing working, or do we need to rethink what we're doing? So
That's right. And it does provide that ongoing growth data, whereas the academic growth that's reported here is simply from one spring to the next spring on the Aspire. The Scantron does give us an opportunity to monitor growth on an ongoing basis.
Have we done based on a scale of 1 to 3,700, and so you can track a child from the first grade in math all the way to senior high.
Really.
Yes.
Have we done the mid-year yet?
Mid-year is actually, right. And because of school being out last week, they are working to complete the testing this week.
And we're communicating with our parents as much as we can.
Absolutely.
I know you can't make them come, but one-on-one or somehow we're communicating.
That's right. And, even in the early release of the information, to us here, we've identified some areas that obviously we can work on, some areas of growth, and, chronic absenteeism being one of those, just like Dr. Code mentioned, the state's position regarding absenteeism. We have our own board policies regarding, school attendance, and we may need to look at those and make sure that we don't have a policy that's not flowing, or hurting us in one way with this chronic absenteeism formula.
I think one on hot for me too was that it's all absences, not just excused or unexcused, they count them all.
Do tardies figure in to that number at all?
They don't. It is simply, when a student is considered absent from school, and just like what Ms. Sport shared, that's been a common concern of administrators across the state. If we have students who are away from school for a school-related purpose, we may need to make sure that that's being recorded appropriately rather than an absent student, that we're getting it recorded the right way so it doesn't count against us on the end of the year report.
And I'll throw out one thing, do we have any media here?
No, sir.
Shoot.
It's just family. This is just family.
This is once where I wish the media were here. But just to plant this seed with you, and I'm not opposed to a report card, I think it's important to reflect. I do have problems with a single letter grade classifying a school. I don't think that's fair, but I think someone needs to pose the question, if we created a report card to provide information to parents that would make them more knowledgeable about making educational choices for their children and giving them choice. The AAA that was mentioned here earlier allows for students to transfer away from failing schools. Under the AAA, the kids that receive scholarships are also to be subjected to the same state assessment as our kids are. And they have been subjected to those tests for the last 3 years. So if you want to paint the picture of choice and that we're giving parents an option to go somewhere else, my question to others would be, why aren't we giving them information about the school they're transferring to? If they've taken the state assessment, why don't the private schools that receive those children have a report card? My 2 cents worth.
All right. See, y'all get that score to us before it goes public?
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll get that to you, and I feel, we are right there at the state average, so we're not completely out of line with what's going on as a whole with the state, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy.
Next item I had, fleet renewal, and kind of going through, all of just the day-to-day structure of the district. I felt like it was important for me in my short time here, just to kind of review any hotspot areas that exist. Fleet renewal is one of those, and that's a decision that the new person coming in is gonna need to make about how we address the condition of our fleet. Just to kind of give you an idea, when the fleet renewal program started, it started in 1996, and Donna, I hope I'm not cutting into just kind of the quick history
You go
of it.
ahead.
The foundation program, fleet renewal started in 1996, and basically what the intent of that was that the legislature appropriate 1/10 of the cost of a bus per year for you to maintain a fleet. They don't give you the full 10th, but it's roughly about 82% of the cost of a bus is what they give you each year. When that started in 1996, most districts replaced their entire fleet. So what happened was, in 10 years, the entire fleet needed replacing again. What it's designed to do really would be for you to replace 1/10 of your fleet annually. Now, what's happened over the years, most districts went out and did that, and I think here, what we're seeing is the result of that big purchase that was made in '96. So you had a big purchase in '96, you had a big purchase in 2006. Now we needed a big purchase in 2016. Okay, so that's kind of history of how we got to where we are today. And Don, I'll let you pick it up from there.
Well, just again, piggybacking off of that, fleet renewal, that's just in order for a bus to be eligible for fleet renewal, it must be 10 years or less in age from the invoice date. You know, and before I got into this transportation end of things, I always thought the first number on the bus, whether it said 09, I thought that was the year. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So we got buses now that say 07, but they were bought in 05. So that's a difference, and I don't understand why it's done that way. But anyway, so we currently have 27 route buses, 10 at Luverne, 9 at Highland, and 8 at Brantley. One of those at Brantley is solely a handicap route. So there's 7 regular routes and 1 handicap route. Currently, we have 4 buses with an invoice date, like I said, of 2005. So we got 4 route buses currently that we receive no funds for as far as fleet renewal. After this school year, we will have an additional 14 route buses that will no longer qualify for fleet renewal because of a 2008 invoice date. Current fleet renewal reimbursement from the state is $6,343 per qualifying route bus. Now, this has nothing to do with spares or anything. This is just for route buses. So after this school year, you can see there the funds that will go away is $114,174 for every year that we will lose from the state because those buses no longer are part of fleet renewal.
And that's already gone for next year.
Yeah.
You're going to lose that much for next year. The question is, do you continue losing that much, or do you purchase buses and finance them with the money that you'll start getting?
Yeah. The governor, one thing in the governor's proposed budget is that she has proposed an increase in fleet renewal up to $7,109 per bus. So we hope that happens. Chances are it will not be that much. In most cases, it probably falls somewhere less than that. Hopefully it's not less than what we're already getting. So what do we need? 15 Type C buses, and the price here I got from a neighboring school system that just purchased buses. So this is pretty close to what they paid per bus, and it's the same type of bus that we currently have in our fleet. It is $81,000 per bus, so you're looking at $1.2 million. And if we got to buy some handicap buses. Now, Dr. Coe and I talked about having one for each campus. Now, these buses, a handicap bus can still be used as a regular route, even if you don't have handicap people on there. All you do is there's 4 seats removed out of the back and the lift in the back, of course. But 15 Type C buses, $1.2 million. If we buy 3 Type C buses with lifts, $96,000, because you got the cost there of not only the lift, but handicap buses must have an AC. They're required to have an air conditioner. Where the other ones, I know we've bought some in the past with air conditioners. My suggestion is that we do not purchase buses in the future with air conditioners unless it's a special needs. That's just my opinion. So you're looking at a total cost of around $1.5 million, and that is again a projected cost. And a lot of school systems, I know that our last buses we bought were in 2014. Ken, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
We financed for 5 years instead of a 10-year period. They were financed for 5 years. That note will go off in 2019, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So that's kind of what we're looking at right there.
I think we borrowed roughly $750,000.
It was 9 buses that we purchased in 2014. 6 of them were purchased with ACs, 3 were not.
Yeah, through Bank.
So 6 were bought with AC?
Yes, we have 6 buses, 2 on each campus with air conditioner.
We kind of preliminary ran numbers, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if, considering the state pays roughly 80% of a bus, if you looked at all 18 buses, if the district could afford to put 20% down up front and just finance the 80% over a 10-year period, based on what we're getting this year, not what the governor proposed, I think we looked at, what was it, around 40,000
Yeah, $35,000 to $40,000 that we'd have to come out of.
annually. That would be what you'd have to take out of your general fund annually to finance, or to make up the difference in what the fleet
Right.
renewal would cover for 18 buses. So, if that kind of helps the thought process, but I know that's something that you don't have to make a decision on it right now, but that's gonna be a major financial decision that needs to be made probably by no later than next October.
Yes.
So if you're gonna order, the decision would need to be made this summer, bids put out this summer for however many. So it's just something to kind of get you in the thought process, and let's start looking financially as we make decisions next year for our budget. If we want to do that, we can set aside funds to make sure we've got enough to manage that, so.
You should have information in your packet, I believe Wendy put that in there. I put the 18 buses in there, their mileage, and that information. And some of this is also included in your packet as well. Any other questions about that? Okay, thank you very much.
So these 18 are the ones that we use consistently for
Yes,
routes
yes,
throughout the
right.
system?
And one thing that we would be able to do is to make a little money, we'd be able to sell 18 buses. So, we make a little bit of money there, obviously, not a whole lot, maybe.
I was curious if that would pay off whatever we owe on the current loan. Just something for you to consider.
Dr. Coe had some ideas of how to sell the buses other avenues that we haven't gone before that could get more money.
Right.
I don't think it would be enough.
Plus our bids usually about $1,500 a
We
bus.
need
It's
to-
about-
I was
if
gonna
we're
say, yes,
lucky.
We didn't
Yes,
do too
not-
well on the last.
I'm a good car salesman
I can-
around here.
I've sold some and got as much as between $500 and $7,500 per bus.
Yeah.
So there's some ways we can approach that. And I'll mention this at one time, since the press isn't here, just something that we did as a district. And glad to see our judge here today, just to throw this out. One thing that we did years ago, I know you have hospitals and nursing homes and assisted living facilities here in Crenshaw County, just like we did in Henry County. We applied for a grant collectively with other county offices where the district just donated a couple of buses to other county entities. And basically, we applied for a grant, a conversion kit, and we converted those spare buses into like mass transit vehicles, like a MASH vehicle, in the event that you needed to mass transport your nursing home patients, or if you had a catastrophe and you need to haul a large number of people. We had buses converted there where we could do some mass transporting. So that's just something that you might wanna think about as you get ready to sell buses. You might wanna set a few of those aside, something that could be used for some other county agencies.
I know our bus, we've got a large county, and I know the answer is probably no. There's no way to consolidate routes.
That's something we can always look at, but, we consolidated a while back.
Just a lot of time.
Well, and here's the drawback to that. The transportation funds are based on a formula which is driven by the number of routes. So if you consolidate routes,
You lose
you're actually gonna lose state money. So we've actually looked at that, and I've called the State Department, had some folks look. So the number of routes that you have now are at a level where you're getting the maximum state reimbursement. So if you cut routes, you'd actually lose what you're getting from the state. So,
Okay.
if that helps, it may not, but.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Last thing I've got under informational items is change in the mileage rate. Ken's put the memo there, you've got a copy of the memo there where the current rate is increased, to 54.5 cents per mile. Also have a travel reimbursement form. I do wanna just briefly mention there, I need to send out a memo, just a reminder as I'm going through some of the travel requests. I think some of our folks have kind of forgotten the rates there under breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so I think it may be time to remind folks the amounts that we will reimburse, in each of those categories. Also have some other items that we need to remind them not to include on receipts, and that they won't get reimbursed without a receipt, so. I learned that the hard way from the CSFO that I had. If I didn't have a receipt, I didn't get reimbursement on it, so. I think we'll be getting something out, just reminding folks not only of the new rate, but what meal reimbursements we can provide. The small things like that really can add up when you're pinching pennies like most people are.
Good. All right, moving on to recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, I have, for you here, Exhibit A. This is a little bit different than what we had in the past. We just basically consolidated most of the personnel recommendations into Exhibit A. You'll notice individuals there under employment, resignation, a medical leave. Those are unusual, a medical leave of absence and a transfer. So I, Dennis Coe, interim superintendent of Crenshaw County Schools, recommend the board approve personnel recommendations attached here to is Exhibit A.
Okay. All right, you got a recommendation. Mike, do I need to read them? The people, just as presented? Okay. All right, you got recommendation for the personnel approval of the personnel recommendations from Dr. Coe. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion, so Ms. Claybrook, second from Mr. Jackson. Any discussion on any of them?
One other thing, just procedurally, we found just a couple of gaps in the process of what happens when we hire. So we're gonna be meeting Friday to just outline step by step from interview down to the final written notification that you were hired or transferred or whatever, what happens when. So regardless of whoever the next person is, they'll have a step-by-step list, because I think we've had some instances where we've missed a step here and there, and this person hadn't been notified, or we don't want people finding out at the gas
I know what you're
station.
talking about.
You know, so we're gonna be
Thank you.
cleaning that up as well.
Good.
One quick question, the new hire,
Yes.
that is, somebody resigned?
Yes.
That's,
Fourth, retirement,
okay,
fourth grade.
so that's elementary,
Yes.
okay.
Fourth grade, is that right, Mr. Matt? Is that,
Math?
Yes,
or, I'm sorry, Matt.
yes, you said A, it threw me off now.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw you said
Fourth
that.
grade.
I heard that.
Fourth grade.
Oh, okay, all right, good. All right, any other questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, those are approved.
And the last one, you've got a copy of the, internet safety policy. I understand this you may have gotten a look at this at the December meeting, and I don't know, or it may have been supposed to have been brought up at the December meeting, but anyway, I've looked through this. I don't think, I haven't seen anything that would be out of the ordinary. Matter of fact, federal law requires that board adopt policy that's in compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act. This basically has to be in place for us to continue to receive E-rate reimbursements for technology. So, just basically lays out what's expected not only of students, but also employees as they use the district's technology.
Okay. Got a recommendation to approve the internet safety policy. Do we have a motion to accept it?
Motion.
Motion from Ms. Claybrook. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, that policy is approved. All right, moving on to the superintendent search. I'm gonna turn that over to Mr. Jones, if you will, and update us where we are,
Sure,
and let's discuss where we go from here.
sure. We, had our deadline of January the 8th for our applications. After that, I got with, Dr. Coe and, basically, used his, knowledge and experience to assist in, arriving at the finalists, what we would determine to be the 5 finalists. So I want to submit those to you for your consideration.
If I remember right, Mr. Jones, there what, 17 total?
16.
16, one was submitted after the deadline.
Correct, that is correct.
Good.
Of course, I've
It's a
got,
good list. Go ahead.
I've got the submissions for those 5, that, you know, if you decide to accept those, I'm sure you'll want to review those submissions. I would anticipate what you want to do is, if you accept those, that you want to set up a time to interview, and, you know, discuss what sort of time frame, when, and how long, and that sort of thing. So, be glad to answer any questions or.
What we did last time, Board, just to remind you, we had some predetermined, some selected questions. I think there was like a page or 2 of them, and we had gone through and sort of highlighted the questions that were important to us. You know, these were just generic questions, and, you know, last time we actually, gave those lists of, important questions to the candidates, and they had time. You didn't want to put somebody on the spot, you know, for how we would handle certain things. Y'all remember that? So, Michael, on that way, if you'll get us that list of questions, let everybody sort of cherry pick the 1 or 2 that's important to them, and we'll consolidate that.
Sure. Be glad
Is
to.
that okay?
What I think you need to determine right now is what sort of time frame
All right.
you want to set to have the interview. Because it's gonna take a little time to notify them, to get schedules, to be sure it's times y'all can do it. I think the way we did it last time, we allotted about an hour. We did 3 one day, and basically we'd do 2 another day. So I think probably if you want to accept those finalists, the first thing would probably be to give me some idea of when you would like to do the interviews, so that we can look at dates, and then we can look at times, because I know some of y'all can't get here at certain times, and, you know, and then that will give us time after we do that I can circulate the questions, we can be narrowing them down, doing whatever y'all
Okay.
want to do with the questions, but then I can go ahead and be contacting those people to see their availability and that sort of thing. So, to me, probably the first thing needs to be when you want to start, how soon you want to do the interviews, and when you want to do them.
And let me add this too. Some others may say differently, but you have complied with the only legal requirement that exists by posting the vacancy for 30 days. After that, the process that you move going forward can be whatever you want it to be. Now, certainly if there are more than 2 of you that gather together at one time, it's a meeting and it needs to be public. But, you know, how you handle this moving forward really is entirely up to you.
Just a question, and I really don't, if one of the board members has a problem with this list, I mean, do we need to approve it tonight, or?
No, you don't
Or
have
is-
to, absolutely not.
I
I
mean-
mean, you've just seen it, so you don't
Yeah.
have to, I mean, not at all. You
All right.
should have time you can do whatever you, and to echo what Dr. Coe just said, you can hire somebody tonight if you wanted to. You can not hire somebody for whatever time
Oh.
frame you want to. I mean, I'm just
Okay.
saying,
Just need
I'm
to,
not recommending that, I'm just saying that how you go forward is totally in your hands. So whatever time you need to consider the list, whatever time you need to decide how you want to proceed, how you wanna conduct interviews, all that sort of thing, that's entirely in your hands, and you can do it however you want to. So, you know, it's entirely up to you.
So what you're saying is we would not have to go through the process of interviewing all of these if we so choose not to?
That is correct.
Yes.
You can interview whatever of those you want to or don't want to. You can,
I've seen districts who have formal interviews, they follow up with a second round that has community meet and greets, and I've seen others that would simply meet with top candidates in groups of 2 and then come back and put some names on the table and vote for them. So, I mean, I've seen it multiple ways, so it's entirely up to you. It just, Mr. Jones just need, I guess the big thing with him would be to notify how you wanna move forward, for him to be able to notify, or who should notify finalists, and a kind of a timetable.
If you do have a problem with the list of 5, please, within a day or so, get with Mike. You know, if there's some reason, whatever reason it would be, let's take care of that first, on that. But why don't we plan, if nothing, no controversy, no issue comes up, maybe the first week of February, you okay with that? Not this week and next week, but maybe the first full week of February, we try to look at schedules and pick 2 days, late afternoons or early evening to interview. We'd sort of have to pick what 2 days that fit everybody else's schedule, to do it that way.
Is that gonna give you enough time, Mike?
well, you know, like I said, you're talking about, scheduling with people, and, you know, here we are on the 22nd.
Of January.
So the first week of February would be the 5th, and that's 2 weeks from tonight. So I think that would, you know,
Well, and
I think that would be enough time, but you know, we're gonna have to contact them and see,
Right,
you know, I
and
mean, they may have conflicts, I mean, the nights you
Well-
pick may not match with somebody, and so, but, you know, ideally, if we take that list, ideally, the thing I would think would be do 3 one night and 2 the next. It may not work that way, you may have to do 2 and 1, or, but, you know, we're gonna have some flexibility depending on when they can come and where they are, and, you know.
And I would just suggest too, that you at least make an announcement of finalists within the next day or 2, because it's already, the weather kind of threw off a week, it's been closed, so you've got, and we had 16 applicants, so there's 16 people saying, well, I haven't heard anything from them. You know, so they're kind of, and you don't want to risk anybody pulling out because they hadn't heard anything from you, so.
Cause I mean, we'll notify the others that aren't finalists too, I mean,
Right.
I'll let them know, and so that they will know
Okay.
where we are.
And you'll notify these, if everybody's comfortable with this list of 5, you'll handle.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If that's y'all's desire, if that's
Yeah.
what you want me to do, I'll be glad to do it.
I will.
Now, do you, let me ask this, after he contacts, do you want that list posted to the district's webpage? Or how do we want to communicate that to the
It's
people?
public record now, isn't
Well, once it's approved by you, I'd post it, I'd do whatever you need to do to get the word out, I think that's the thing to do. I mean, I'd be as,
it? Personally, there's good, 5
Ideas.
good ones in
I'd be as open
there.
and
Yeah,
as much, not, you know, information as you can, and I think that would behoove us all, so I think it's a good thing to do.
and I fully support the open interviews. You know, we don't need to hide anything on our part, but, you know, if the public wants to come listen to somebody's thoughts and, you know, goals and stuff, I think it's a good thing.
It
I
is,
do.
so,
Let's try to go with that week.
okay, is there any particular day that week that is not good for anybody? I said we wanna avoid
Put
Fridays,
monkey on you, how do you feel that week?
so we're basically looking
What's the
at,
decision we're gonna make that week, if we're okay?
No,
with
just for interviews.
He's talking about,
that week for interviews?
Just
he's talking
have
about
interviews.
some
Okay.
public sort of invited interview,
Okay.
Yes,
right?
and then we would,
and
if
then
things
so-
go well, we might
Okay.
even make a recommendation by that 26th. If not, we'll see.
But if we decided tonight that no one has a problem with the finalists that are picked, he can move forward.
Yes, sir.
Or do you wanna wait a few days and then see if somebody has a problem with it? I'm just doing this for,
Yeah.
I'm saying for time's sake.
I think if somebody's got an issue with the list, Mike, if you'll just stay around, I know you're probably busy, but stay around just a minute, once we adjourn, and let's get that, at least, if there's anything we need to put on the table, let's put it on and, deal with it.
It looks like February sixth, there's a PTA meeting at Laverne School that night. So that might be, you might eliminate
Whatever.
that group of
That's a
people.
Thursday.
That's a Tuesday,
Tuesday.
February sixth. So just, that's something I know of.
Okay.
There might be other PTA meetings that same week that I don't know about, but
Still wanna do it on Wednesday night.
I think we did that one time.
What time is that meeting, Sherry?
it's at 6.
Okay.
I think we did on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and
Hearing terms for basketball.
When?
Laverne's schedule says the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and tenth. Everybody makes it all the way through with the boys and the girls being on different days. I don't know if every school, area tournaments are those days, but that's when Laverne's are scheduled.
Everybody's in the same.
Yeah, they'll be on the same window.
Yeah, that's the window.
well, let's, from here on till May 31st, or whenever y'all get out, it's gonna be hectic. So let's, y'all five, if you will, look at your schedule and with the candidates, and then we'll just have to work around that. So,
So that's what I just wanna know, is any of those dates, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, that's not good with any of you board members, if you just let me know.
pretty quick. All right,
Otherwise, I'll consider it to be open game.
and then we'll do public interviews, and then we'll get back together following that, and if we wanna make a recommendation, we will. We need to keep it open. It's at our pleasure from that
So
point.
like Dr. Coe said, you can do something at that time, you can follow up, you can narrow it further and follow up with a second interview, you can do whatever you'd like to do.
It's just good going into it for a finalist to know what are the next steps, so to have that staff up front. And I think, if you wanted to consider a round two, I think you pitch that to the finalist and say that up front. There's a possibility that we may have a second. You may not, if you don't, you may not need that, but I think it's important to offer that, to say, we may have a round two of interviews if needed.
All right, so we're gonna target that week. If you don't hear us pretty quick, we'll get the questions narrowed down to a few. I think we'll try to keep it at about a 45-minute interview. Somebody talk that long is pretty rough. And then a break, and then the other one start at the top of the next hour. We'll, a little downtime in between that, in case they're long-winded like I am or something. On that. So we would target about a 45-minute.
Sure.
So
Like
are-
Dr. Coe also indicated, there's other positions that are open out there.
Yeah,
So,
we need to move.
so the quicker we can notify people and get them in, then, the better we are.
For superintendents, about like football coaches, did y'all see that list of how many football coaches or vacancies are still out there?
The average,
Tons of 'em.
average tenure now for superintendent is right at 2 years.
That's what we're seeing.
So out of 137, there's roughly about 30% of them that are first-year superintendents.
Really? Wow.
My question was, are you proposing that, if we choose a date, that, all 5 of these will be interviewed when you said interviews, or are you just
Yes,
gonna say?
ma'am, that was my proposal, that's the finalists and all of them would be interviewed.
Okay.
unless we decide we
Unless
don't
you-
want to go with all
We don't
5.
have to. We-
That's correct, that's just my,
Right.
and that's, like I said, based on consultation with Dr. Coe.
Well, I was just thinking when Steve said 45 minutes, at 5.
We don't wanna do it all in one day.
You busted out, I do.
It's not
two
fair to the
days.
last man standing.
You know, you do 3 in one day and 2 the
You'd have to
next.
bring a dinner, Miss
I
Bertha.
know.
Wendy's buying.
Cause y'all will get, and that's not fair to you, cause you get glazed over too. I'd suggest
It's not
no
fair.
more than 3 in a
Yeah,
day.
that's not fair. All right.
Sounds
Obviously, it's a very big step in the future of our program, of our system, so we need to take it serious. Do our best not to let it be political, but as some people will say, you know, that's the industry we're in, so, you know, let's keep an open mind and make a good decision what's best for all of our students, all 2,000 of them. And I know that we will, we just stay focused on our job.
I am, I mean,
All right.
that's, personally, that's a good week for me. I think in terms of, the way we're approaching it, I mean, I'm in favor of interviewing the folks on this list myself.
I'm very,
I mean, that's frankly what we have, as Dr. Coe said, we've satisfied what we're required to do. Now, so we can actually do what we want to do sort of from this point on. That's just a public interview. It's not to say that we, you know, that's when we all get together and do our thing here with all the candidates, but you need to let folks know, because you know good and well that some people may be wanting to pursue other positions.
you'll get with those pretty quick,
Sure, absolutely,
unless somebody has an issue.
absolutely.
All right.
Let me close out with this, if you don't mind, just for the camera's sake. I know we are videotaping for those of you that are viewing the film from Advanced Ed. If you're reviewing this tape, just understand, this is my first board meeting as an interim superintendent, and you can see, even being new, how well-run the meetings are. This is a testament to the functionality of this school system. I'm not just saying that here, it's evident, should be evident to the accreditation committee, that these are well-dedicated professional individuals that have a firm grasp on professional functionality of a school system. So I hope that's evident tonight in a board meeting. My first one here is a district, just basically the district is a well-run machine. So thank you. I hope you appreciate that and take that into consideration as you make your accreditation decision.
I do have one quick question, but it's not on the agenda, but I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Where are we on the Hollow Home project?
I was gonna adjourn, then I'll let you bring it up, since I forgot to put it on the agenda. We got a motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Claybrook, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.